through it, and you talk a lot about Sinai, and you rely a lot on Rabbi Sachs and his insights, which I find to be very, very fascinating as we go through. My question is then, knowing where this thought process comes from, what are you advocating for Christians to do? Is to stand up for this freedom that we have, to introduce our, I don't want to say reintroduce ourselves, but rediscover it, perhaps to uphold it? Or I'm trying to understand it where we're, because I've loved your stuff and I loved your insights into the culture. I'm trying to help because I too have been pastoring, and I've too seen a lot of the different pastors and how they've respond to this, and they get caught up in the Kool-Aid, as you've mentioned. And I totally agree. So how do we remain biblically faithful, and yet we give a listening ear to those who are struggling, but yet not adopt the ideology that seems to really, as you mentioned, cultural Marxism, that I know even many of the Christians that I interact with, they hear the term, but then they shut down. They don't know exactly what that means. They don't know how to think, because they're so busy. They're so caught up with so many different things, and their faith is very, very, not very deep. So how do we respond to this, to rediscover it? Yes, but then to do what with it?
Well, let's go wider, Travis.
Okay.
We're called clearly to be rather like David's men, read the signs of the times.
Yes.
Or our Lord rebukes his generation. They could read the weather,
Mm-hmm.
but they couldn't read the signs of the times. And his great lament over Jerusalem, all, as one version puts it, they missed God's moment when it came. Or you have the counterexample of King David, who in Acts 13, he served God's purpose in his generation. What a magnificent idea. In other words, we got to know where we are, what a time we're in. Mm-hmm. The crisis and decadence of the West. This enormous crisis in the American Republic, the world's lead society. The rise of China, totalitarian atheism, and the prospects of singularity and transhumanism coming down the pike. What a moment in history. Mm. And here in America, the scandal of the church is we're the majority still, and yet we're less influential than tiny groups, people we admire like the Jews, people we disagree with, like, say, the LGBT people. We're a huge majority compared with them, and we are called to be salt and light. Mm. We're not salty and we're not light-bearing. So we need to start by recognizing, of course, really understanding the gospel, but recognizing where we are. Now, freedom, and I'm also, as you know, concerned with religious freedom.
Yes.
Neither of them are absolutes. Freedom is a means. Religious freedom is a means to an end. The end is the glory of God. But freedom means the capacity, the ability to be who we are, to speak as we want to speak, and so on. So freedom is a means, not an end. So as you said, the church thrives under persecution. I mentioned that. Look how the Chinese church has grown under that. So I'm not real Pollyanna-ish, but America represents the closest to ordered freedom that was once rooted in the Bible. And so anyone concerned with humanity, freedom, justice, stability, peace, community, and so on, has to take seriously where the American experiment is. I'm not American.
Right.
So last year I was criticized as a, quote, Christian nationalist. Nonsense.
Yeah, that is
difference
nonsense.
between nationalism, which is an idolatry, and patriotism, which is love and loyalty to a place and its ideas, the best of them. And so I do stand for freedom. Now, freedom I love for another reason. I mentioned justice. Both the left and Christians and almost everybody agrees certain things are unjust. Mm-hmm. Our difference there is over how you tackle them. But with freedom, that's not so. The Jewish and Christian view, in other words, the biblical view, is pretty well unique. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, and let's be clear, the secularists. You look at modern atheism. Freedom is a fiction. Chance and necessity. Atheism is totally deterministic. Freedom is uniquely biblical. And we should be the defenders of it, thank God. Now, as I said, it's a means, it's not an end. You've got to put the ends in. As Isaiah Berlin said, you have negative freedom, freedom from. You also have positive freedom, freedom for. So we as Christians are clear that our biblical views shape the freedom for. Not just any old freedom. It's not libertarian freedom. It's not get the government off my back, don't tread on me, that sort of thing. Not in my backyard, NIMBY. Not in my backyard, you don't. No, that's not freedom. That's purely negative freedom. We have a positive view of freedom.